This is the last chance for Helldivers 2, and I think they've only bloody gone and done it. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the channel. So what we've got here is the massive balance patch for Helldivers 2. Everything is buffed, and I mean everything. There are no nerfs in this patch. It is buff after buff after buff. The 500 kilogram bomb is buffed, so its damage now matches the visuals. The Flamethrower is reduced back to, well, I guess it's not even reduced, but it's returned back to its old level of power. It also looks the same as it did before. It is actually insane. You can go out there and live that Flamethrower fantasy, which you will see through most of this video, although I do use the Eruptor and the Railgun in this video as well, which of course have also been buffed, and the Eruptor is super powerful, and the Scythe is actually incredible. I think the takeaway from this, guys, before we get into the patch notes, is this feels like Helldivers used to feel when the game launched, so the devs have absolutely cracked it. There's going to be bugs with this, don't get me wrong. I don't know what the bugs are yet, but there will be bugs. But I don't even care, because the feeling I'm getting is the feeling I got back when I first played the game in February and March. It was like, holy hell, I feel overpowered, I feel super strong. So the fantasy of the Helldivers has absolutely been nailed here. Now, the offset to all of this is, yes, the game will be a little bit easier, but then that's going to be up to the devs to give us more difficult challenges, because you will notice throughout this gameplay clip here, things like destroying heavily armored enemies is a lot easier, even with weapons that are not designed to kill them. Okay, with all that being said, let's get stuck into the patch notes. So what they've done is reworked armor penetration and anti-tank weapons and enemy armor and health values, and they go on to say, our goal is to improve the effectiveness of weapons such as the Autocannon, heavy machine gun, flamethrower, and anti-material rifle against heavily armored enemies. Although they may not be as effective as specialized anti-tank weapons, they are now more viable choices, making your loadouts more versatile, fostering better team collaboration and planning. And then on the bot front, Hulks have also had their armor reduced, making them more vulnerable to a wider range of weapons. Additionally, to improve the gameplay experience, the Devastator and Gunship will now have a limited supply of rockets, and those rockets won't hit as frequently as before. This comes alongside the previously updated smaller impact radius for rockets, reducing excessive ragdolling. We've also made improvements to many primary weapons, bringing them closer in effectiveness to the most popular choices. This should offer more variety and flavour during your play sessions. We're also adjusting damage mechanics to make the damage Helldivers receive more consistent over time by reducing 100% headshot damage to 50%. To maintain the overall challenge of the game, we've slightly increased the damage taken to other parts of the body. Our intent is to preserve the intensity of the gameplay while minimizing frustrating situations where sudden headshots cause large damage spikes. Okay, this is massive and this is great, and those are the major updates to the major systems, I guess. But what we're going to do now is get stuck into the actual individual balance changes, because they are insane and they're just all buffs. It is insane. Okay, we've got tons and tons to cover now, so I'm going to go through this pretty quick, but basically it begins with this. So general balancing. Previous partial damage dealt 50% of full damage, which we found to be overly punishing and reduced effectiveness too much, leading to an excessive reliance on high armor penetration weapons. We've now increased partial damage to 65% of full damage to address this issue. The Helldiver now takes less damage from headshots, which previously dealt 100% extra damage, but now only inflict 50% extra damage. Damage from hits to other body parts have been slightly increased depending on the area hit. This adjustment aims to normalize overall damage while maintaining detailed damage zones, reducing damage spikes or spike damage. So then we go on to primary weapons. The Liberator and Liberator Carbine. Damage increased from 60 to 70. Durable damage increased from 14 to 17. Stagger force increased from 10 to 15. Max spare magazines increased from 7 to 8. Starting spare magazines increased from 5 to 6. The Knight. Damage increased from 50 to 65. Durable damage increased from 5 to 7. Sorry, my voice went. Magazines now fully refill when picking up resupply. Reduced recoil. Liberator Concussive now comes with drum magazine, which holds 60 rounds. Number of mags reduced from 10 to 6. This number of mags has been reduced due to larger magazine capacity. Tenderizer. Number of rounds in its magazine increased from 30 to 35. Starting magazines increased from 4 to 5. Breaker now comes with extended magazine, which holds 16 shells. Stagger force increased from 10 to 15. Spray and Pray now has duckbill muzzle, making it spread very horizontal but less vertical. Total damage increased from 192 to 240. Scythe. This thing is sick, right? You'll see in this gameplay footage in the background somebody using the Scythe. It is insane. Go and get the Scythe, right? It is sick. It's actually sick. It just looks insane and incredible now. So the cooldown is faster. Adjustments to the heat VFX, scope change to low powered scope, removed recoil, set enemies on fire faster. Crossbow, explosion radius increased by 50%, explosion damage increased from 150 to 350. Eruptor. Now, this is insane, and you will see footage of this in this video. So, Shrapnel is back. We heard your feedback and reintroduced the Shrapnel. We've replaced the original Shrapnel with the Frag Grenade Shrapnel to no longer instantly one-shot Helldivers, with the exception of the occasional unlucky headshot. Shrapnel projectiles are set to 30. Shrapnel damage is set to 110. Explosion damage decreased from 340 to 225. We also increased the amount of shrapnel. Explosion radius increased by 33%, 17% for inner radius, and 50% for outer radius. And I can straight up tell you guys, this thing feels really, really good. And it still has got that issue where you fire it close to yourself, it will impact on you and you'll fly back, but it won't kill you. And that's the thing. Whereas obviously the very old Eruptor, the first version of it, could just instantly kill you, which was pretty funny. But now you've got the explosion and the shrapnel together. So it's just a really, really strong weapon. It's so good. Defender, damage increased from 70 to 75. Durable damage increased from 7 to 8. Liberator Penetrator, damage increased from 45 to 60. Diligence, damage increased from 125 to 165. Durable damage increased from 32 to 42. Counter Sniper, damage increased from 140 to 200. Durable damage increased from 14 to 50. Stagger Force increased from 15 to 20. Blitzer now has a weak stun effect that builds up per shot on its targets. Torture, damage increased by 50%, and you are seeing gameplay footage of this here. It's very powerful. Flamer mechanic reverted to before the Escalation of Freedom update. Oh yes, an increased AP from 3 to 4, so you can kill heavy enemies. It acts as it did before. It washes over enemies, and the VFX are back. It's so good. Well, I guess the Torture is the primary weapon, so that was the new one, but the Flamethrower also benefits from all of this as well, but you'll see that in a second. So moving on to sidearms, the Peacemaker increased max spare magazines from 5 to 6. The Dagger gains heat more slowly, removed recoil, damage increased from 200 to 250, sets enemies on fire faster, adjustments to the heat VFX. Crisper, and again, you're seeing this in the video, it's really strong. It's so good, the Crisper is. Damage increased by 50%. Flamer mechanics reverted to before Escalation of Freedom update, increased AP from 3 to 4. So let's move on to support weapons. Dedicated anti-tank weapons like the recoilless rifle, Quasar, Commando, expandable, anti-tank, spear, expendable. Why do I always call it expandable? I will never get that out of my head. It must be some sort of dyslexia. I just cannot read it. Expendable, anti-tank, spear, and Patriot Exo Suit rockets have all received significant damage boosts to enhance their effectiveness. These weapons generally fall into 3 categories. Strong and reliable, the recoilless rifle and spear, can afford to be less accurate when firing at armored targets, since most hits will eliminate enemies the size of a charger. Strong, the expendable, anti-tank, and Quasar are highly effective, often killing targets with a single hit to a weak spot. Otherwise, 2 solid shots will handle a charger, or 1 shot for a Hulk. Less strong, the Commando and Patriot Exo Suit rockets typically require 1 to 3 shots to take down a charger or Hulk, depending on your aim. Grenade Launcher. Starting spare magazines increase from 1 to 2. Max spare magazines increase from 2 to 3. Explosion radius slightly increased. Laser Cannon. Cooldown is slightly faster. Removed recoil, sets enemies on fire faster. Can now damage heavier enemies like Chargers, Bile Titans, Impalers, and Hulks. Adjustments to the VFX. Arc Thrower. Range increased from 35 to 55. Now has a moderate stun effect that builds up on its targets. Jumps additional times. Durable damage increased from 50 to 100. That sounds actually insane. Railgun. You will see a bit of Railgun footage in this game, so I think I'll pick up somebody's Railgun and having a bit of a blast with it. But durable damage increased from 60 to 225. Fully overcharging damage increased from 150% to 250%. The Stalwart, damage increased from 60 to 70. Durable damage increased from 14 to 17. Stagger Force increased from 10 to 15. Machine Gun, Stagger Force increased from 15 to 20. Anti-Material Rifle, durable damage increased from 135 to 180. Can now damage heavier enemies like Chargers, Bile Titans, Impalers, and Hulks. Stagger Force increased from 20 to 25. Heavy machine gun, stagger force increased from 20 to 25, can now damage heavier enemies like Chargers, Biotitans, Impalers, and Hulks. Commando, demolition strength against structures has been reduced. It can no longer destroy automaton fabricators in a single shot. However, since the fabricators now have health, it can still take them out with 2 shots. Flamethrower, damage increased by 33%. Flame mechanics reverted to before Escalation of Freedom update. Increased armor penetration from 3 to 4. Can now damage heavier enemies like Chargers, Biotitans, Impalers, and Hulks. And you have been seeing me burn things up in this video clip with it, and it's yeah, it's very powerful. But also the Eruptor is great as well. Autocannon can now damage heavier enemies like Chargers, Biotitans, Impalers, and Hulks. Now, I've not tried this yet because obviously the patch has just come out, but this is probably going to be totally ridiculous. Like the Autocannon, you just rail it into everything and it's just going to destroy them. I cannot wait. I just cannot wait. I cannot wait to play with the Autocannon. Oh, man. Moving on to grenades. So Frag Grenade. Shrapnel damage increased by roughly 50%. Max amount increased from 4 to 5. Refill radius increased from 2 to 3. Explosion radius increased. Thermite Grenade. Explosion damage increased from 100 to 2,000. You heard me right. 2,000. Shorter time until it ignites a thermite. Time until it explodes slightly reduced. Max number decreased from 4 to 3. So this thermite grenade now, I think you can kill everything with it basically. You throw this onto a heavier enemy, it will burn through them and blow them up. That's what it's for. Absolutely insane. Moving on to stratagems. Every stratagem is capable of damaging heavily armored enemies and had their damage increased to account for the increased health of heavier enemies. The goal with this change is to have the stratagems on a similar or higher power level than before. In addition to that, we have made the following changes as well. The 500 kilogram bomb explosion radius increased to match visuals better, and this feels absolutely great to use. It finally feels like the visual, so it's just great. Amazing change. Something they should have done a long time ago, but I'm really happy that they've done this. Eagle rockets, damage slightly increased. Underrated stratagem, that is. It's really good at taking out heavy enemies. Gatling Sentry, stagger force increased from 15 to 20. Machine Gun Sentry, stagger force increased from 15 to 20. Tesla Tower, increased stagger force to match other weapons, now has a moderate stun effect that builds up per hit on its target. Heavy Machine Gun Emplacement, stagger force increased from 20 to 25, can now damage heavier enemies like Chargers, Biotitans, Impalers, and Hulks. Patriot Exo Suit, Gatling stagger force increased from 15 to 20. Emancipator Exo Suit, Autocannon durable damage increased from 60 to 150. Rate of fire on its weapons increased from 125 to 175. Ammo increased from 75 to 100 per arm. Orbital Laser, damage slightly increased. Orbital Railcannon, damage slightly increased. Now, obviously, with the Orbital Railcannon, I think this basically means it always one-shots a Biotitan. So if you throw it on a Biotitan, it should kill it all of the time. Orbital Gas Strike, we're reworking the gas gameplay mechanics to become more crowd control focused in preparation for the Chemical Agents Warbond. The gas effect has been reworked to cause blindness and confuse enemies and Helldivers alike at the expense of reduced damage over time. So kind of interesting there, adding like a different class of weapon into the game almost instead of just area damage, which is obviously that's being taken up by the flame weapons. And so the chemical and the gas weapons are now going to be more about confusion and blocking line of sight, which honestly I think makes sense. So let's move on to some gameplay changes. There is a new Galactic War feature. The Galactic War map can now display the location of strategically important assets. This will make it much easier for the Helldivers to take them into consideration when deciding their next move. Emote Wheel feature. Players can now equip up to 4 emotes in the armory and access them using the new Emote Wheel feature by holding the emote button. Additional separate key binding options are available for the Emote Wheel in these settings, and they also added Dolby Atmos support on PS5. So let's talk about the enemies. Automaton Fabricators now have health and armor in addition to their existing destruction system. This means that while many high penetration weapons can still destroy them, it may take multiple hits to do so, depending on the weapon used. And they added effects to clearer showcase the health state or their health state. So there's a different way now of destroying these. It's not so much about just hitting the weak spot. You can pile fire into the side of them and destroy them that way, provided you're using a weapon, I guess. That's got armor penetration, so that's really interesting. Hulks, so this is all versions of them. Armor reduced from 5 to 4. Back weak spot, slightly more durable. Back weak spot health decreased from 1,000 to 800. Hulk Bruiser, replace the rocket launcher for an energy-based cannon. Increase how frequently the Hulk Bruiser shoots. So no more annoying rockets off these guys, but they've now got a massive laser. Tank, front armor increased from 5 to 6. Berserker, head health reduced from 150 to 125. Main health reduced from 1000 to 750. Abdomen is now a weak spot. Chainsaw damage increased, so don't let these guys get near you. Devastators, so this is all versions of them. Main health reduced from 800 to 750. Devastators now flinch when hit, causing their aim to worsen. Similar to the conscripts, the intent is to make them easier to manage if you keep applying damage, and I really like that because this makes them sort of priority targets. We all know what the Devastators are like. When they like hunker down, look at you, you just know the rockets are coming straight at you, so now you can shoot them and mess up their aim. That's really cool. Like that change, Arrowhead. Rocket Devastators now has a limited number of rockets, and you can see them disappear when they are spent. Added a reload mechanic from their backpack to replenish their rockets ones. Rockets physics collision is smaller, making them easy to avoid. So this is again a great change. Gunships now have a limited amount of rockets. Rocket physics collision is smaller, making them easier to avoid. Again, a great change. Charger, now this is for all versions of the Charger. Armor is reduced from 5 to 4. The butt weak spot health is decreased from 1100 to 950. The butt weak spot is slightly less durable. The belly armor reduced from 4 to 2. A damage multiplier has been added to the Charger's exposed flesh of the main body, now dealing 300% damage. Now turns slightly slower when charging and moving. Now charge less often. Charge damage decreased by 50%. Side attack damage increased by 50%. And charge damage is increased by 50%, not decreased. Charger Behemoth. The butt weak spot health decreased from 1,200 to 950. Hunter health is reduced from 175 to 160. I'm reading loads of numbers off and it's confusing me. Scavengers health is reduced from 80 to 60. Bile Titan armor reduced from 5 to 4. We have reworked the Bile Titan's belly gameplay. Belly armor has been reduced from 4 to 2. Introduced a separate belly health pool once the outer belly layer has been destroyed. Destroying the exposed belly health pool kills the Titan. So I like this because you can obviously pop the belly, then keep firing into the belly, and then it will die. And that should have always been the case anyway. I think a lot of players generally thought that was the case as well, but it wasn't, but it is now. Impaler armor reduced from 5 to 4. Previously, the Impaler could only retract its tentacles once during its lifetime when threatened. Now it can do it several times. Its tentacles pursue you over a shorter distance from the Impaler and prioritize players nearer to the Impaler. If the Impaler can't see an enemy, it will retract its tentacles after a brief period. So this should all help with it just literally chasing you across the map and throwing you everywhere. Impaler tentacles, tentacle damage is increased. Reduced camera shake of the tentacle attack. The tentacles require less damage inflicted on them to retract. Planets and modifiers. The intense heat and extreme cold modifiers are no longer static throughout the entire mission and may now change based on the time of day or different weather conditions. Some of the desert planets will now only have an intense heat modifier active during the day. This means that during night, the planet will either have no modifier or in some cases have the extreme cold modifier. Arid planets, similar to Hellmire, will now only have the intense heat modifier active during the fire tornado storms. So there you go, guys. Those are all of the buffs in this massive patch. This is the biggest patch Helldivers 2 has ever received. You can see what the devs are doing. They are making steps in the right direction. They're giving power back to the players. They're giving us that power fantasy of stupidly strong weapons, and we use them to destroy hordes of enemies as I get thrown across the map. And use them to destroy heavy enemies, and also giving weapons that were just completely ineffective against the heavier enemies an option to actually deal damage to them now, and then giving us different ways of playing around it. Like, I really like the change to the armor on the Chargers, because when you strip the armor off them, they then become very vulnerable. Their skin takes 300% extra damage on those exposed areas, and you can just pile damage in with your primary weapons and just do tons and tons of damage. It's great. This, to me, feels like a proper reset. It feels like Helldivers 2 2.0, or it's like Helldivers 2 the return of Helldivers 2. I'm not sure how to phrase it, but hopefully you guys can get what I'm trying to say. It feels like the game is back to that power fantasy we all got when we first played this game. Now it's going to be over to the devs to give us more content, give us more missions, give us obviously the Illuminate, new stratagems, and things that actually make sense. Of course, we've got the Chemical Agents War Bond, which is coming out, I believe, I want to say tomorrow, or is it the 19th? if you guys are watching this video today, which went out on the 17th. But it's a few days anyway, and then that's going to come out. Really looking forward to that. But I do think this is a really great and a really much needed reset. Now also, there was a bunch of bug fixes, and there are also known issues. There is a link in the video description below which takes you through to their Steam page where you can see all of this detail. I didn't want to add this to the video because frankly it would make the video about 10 hours long, and yeah, and also a lot of the bug fixes, or well, maybe not a lot of them, but some of the bug fixes, for example, like the 500 kilogram bomb not having a visual to, well, having an explosion that didn't match its visual, has now been fixed. We've obviously covered that in the buff section. So yeah, I want you guys to let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. I think this is a really good step in the right direction. I think the majority of players want the mad power fantasy of just doing tons and tons of damage with really powerful weapons that feel fun to use. Because at the end of the day, this is a PvE game. You know, we've all experienced this, or I guess a lot of us have experienced this recently with Space Marine 2, with the weapons just feeling stupidly powerful. Makes you feel awesome, makes you feel powerful, and that's what the fantasy of this game, honestly, is all about. All right, guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. I'm going to be very interested to read the comments here, because I know for me personally, I've not been playing a lot of Helldivers. I actually, when I loaded up Steam, it was nearly 30 days since I actually last played Helldivers 2. So, you know, this update has brought me back, and it's going to make me play for the rest of the day because I want to check out all of the weapons and see where we're going. I do remember there will be bugs because it's Arrowhead. There will be bugs. There'll be problems. I'm sure these will get addressed and identified fairly quickly. But it is a step in the right direction, and I think, yeah, keep doing this, guys. And, yeah, this could be a bright future for Helldivers 2. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video. I've been Stylos. If you did enjoy it, then do subscribe to the channel, like the video, and all that good stuff. And I'll catch you lovely lot on the next one. See you soon.